think winter is cold today? Imagine no heater, no electricity, no grocery store, just wind screaming through cracks in your walls and snow piling higher than your door. Now here's the crazy part. Medieval peasants survived this every single year. And not just survived, they prepared for it like quiet geniuses. If you think they were clueless and miserable, you're about to be very wrong, because some of their cold weather tricks were so smart, they almost feel illegal. Trick number 1. They didn't fight the cold the way you think. In places like medieval England and Scandinavia, families built homes half underground. Not because they were poor, because the earth itself is insulation. These turf and wattle houses trapped warmth like a thermos. Step inside and the air was shockingly stable. Snow outside, calm warmth inside. But here's the twist. The house wasn't the warmest place. The animals were. Trick number 2. Peasants often kept livestock inside or right against their homes. Cows, goats, even chickens. Sounds dirty? Maybe. But a cow produces serious body heat. That heat rose through wooden floors and warmed sleeping spaces above. Imagine turning your barn into central heating. No firewood wasted, no extra fuel, just biology doing the work. And speaking of firewood, what if I told you they didn't rely only on wood? Trick number 3. In parts of Ireland and Scandinavia, people burned peat cut from bogs. Peat dries into dense fuel bricks that burn long and slow. It meant heat that lasted through the night, but fuel was precious. So they mastered trick number 4, layered clothing that would embarrass modern winter fashion. Linen underlayer to wick moisture, wool outer layers to trap heat, cloaks pinned tight, hoods, mittens, leg wrappings. They understood something we forget. Staying dry is staying alive. Wet equals death in freezing wind. But clothing alone wasn't enough. Here's something most people don't know. Medieval peasants ate for survival, not comfort. Trick number 5. Winter diets were calorie bombs. Thick pottage stews with grains, beans, salted pork fat, dark rye bread, cheese aged for months, ale that provided both hydration and energy. They weren't eating light salads. They were fueling internal furnaces. Your body burns food to create heat. They knew that without knowing the science. And here's where it gets even smarter. Trick number 6. Food preservation was everything. Autumn wasn't just harvest season. It was a race against death. Meat salted, fish dried, cabbage fermented into early sauerkraut, root vegetables stored in underground cellars where temperature stayed just above freezing. If stores failed, winter became a silent killer, so preparation wasn't optional. It was life insurance. But now imagine this. A blizzard hits. Snow blocks the village. No travel. No help. What then? That's where trick number 7 comes in. Community heat. Medieval peasants didn't isolate. Families clustered. Villages shared ovens. Shared labor, shared risk. In extreme cold, people literally slept closer together to conserve warmth. Body heat stacked in small spaces, the weakest protected in the center. It wasn't just physical survival, it was social survival. Alone, you froze. Together, you endured. And here's the emotional twist nobody talks about. Winter wasn't just danger, it was rhythm. It forced stillness, tools repaired, stories told, skills taught by firelight. Children learned by watching elders survive another season. Hardship built systems. Systems built resilience. But don't romanticize it. Winters were brutal. Fingers lost to frostbite. Livestock dying. Crops failing. Yet year after year, peasants adjusted, improved storage, reinforced roofs, cut more peat, added thicker thatch. Survival was innovation under pressure. And here's the powerful reveal. They didn't survive because they were stronger than us. They survived because they respected winter. They didn't assume comfort. They planned months ahead. They worked with nature instead of pretending to control it. Today, we panic during a short power outage. They prepared all year for months of darkness. So the next time you turn on a heater without thinking, remember this. Somewhere centuries ago, a peasant family was sitting inside a turf house, livestock below, peat fire glowing, thick wool wrapped tight, stew simmering slowly. And outside, the same brutal wind was howling. The difference wasn't technology, it was preparation. And that might be the most important survival lesson of all. You thought that was all? Not even close. Because surviving winter wasn't just about heat and food. The real genius was in the small, almost invisible habits that kept people alive when everything else failed. Let me show you what most history books don't tell you. When the first frost hit villages across medieval Europe, especially in places like England and the colder regions near Scandinavia, something changed overnight. Work didn't stop, it transformed. And this is where their next survival trick begins. They controlled light. Sounds simple. It wasn't. Winter meant long darkness. Fewer daylight hours meant less productivity, lower morale, and higher risk. So peasants rationed candles like treasure. Tallow candles made from animal fat were carefully stored. Fires were banked at night, not extinguished. Coals were buried under ash, so they could be revived in the morning without wasting precious fuel. Imagine waking up and not needing to start a fire from scratch in freezing air. One spark saved hours of effort. But here's the twist. Light wasn't just for seeing. It was psychological armor. Long winters sets with the mind. Isolation, silence, endless gray skies. So they built traditions around winter evenings. Storytelling, handcrafting, singing, small celebrations tied to the calendar. These weren't luxuries. They were survival tools for mental strength. And now ask yourself, when was the last time you prepared your mind for hardship? Because they did, every year. Here's another overlooked trick. They designed daily movement carefully. In freezing temperatures, sweating could kill you. Sweat freezes, frozen fabric steals body heat. So heavy work was timed during the warmer parts of the day. Layers were adjusted constantly. They understood thermoregulation through experience. No science textbook, just survival feedback. And speaking of movement, snow wasn't just an obstacle, it was insulation. In some northern areas, snow was packed intentionally against walls to block wind. Think about that. The very thing threatening you becomes your shield. That mindset is powerful. Use the environment, don't curse it. But what about water? Rivers froze, wells iced over. Dehydration in winter is silent and deadly. So, households stored water indoors before deep freeze. Ice was melted slowly near hearths. And ale, yes, ale again, was safer to drink than contaminated water and provided calories. They weren't drinking for fun, they were maintaining energy. Now here's a detail most people never imagine. Bedding strategy, medieval peasants didn't just throw blankets on a bed. Straw mattresses were replaced regularly because damp straw steals warmth. Beds were often enclosed with wooden frames and curtains to trap heat around the sleeper. Shared beds were common, not from poverty alone, but efficiency. More bodies, more warmth. It sounds uncomfortable to us. To them, it meant waking up alive. And then comes one of the smartest cold weather defenses, foresight in architecture. Roof pitch steep, so snow slid off before weight collapsed the house. Thatched roofs trapped air pockets that insulated naturally. Small windows reduced heat loss. Every design choice whispered the same message. Winter is coming. Plan accordingly. But what if supplies ran low? Here's where discipline mattered. Rationing wasn't emotional. It was mathematical. grain measured, meat portions controlled. If winter was mild, great. If it stretched longer than expected, those careful calculations meant survival into early spring, the hungriest season of all. Because here's the part people forget. Late winter was often worse than early winter. Food stores shrinking, animals weaker, spirits lower. The excitement of first snow long gone, just cold fatigue. That's when true resilience showed. And here's the emotional beat. Children watched all of this. They learned that survival wasn't dramatic. It was daily discipline. Repair the fence before the storm. Dry the firewood before rain. Salt the meat before it spoils. Close the shutters before nightfall. Small actions, massive consequences. So what's the final hidden truth behind medieval winter survival? It wasn't one genius trick. It was a system. A chain of habits built across generations. They observed patterns. They adapted. They respected seasons. They didn't gamble with nature. And maybe that's the lesson we ignore today. Comfort made us reactive. They were proactive. Winter didn't surprise them. It arrived on schedule, and they were ready. So imagine standing in a medieval village as snow begins to fall, smoke rising from low turf roofs, animals shifting below floorboards, families gathering close, peat fires glowing steady, no panic, no chaos, just preparation meeting reality. Brutal winter outside, quiet resilience inside. That's how they survived, not with magic, not with modern tech, but with awareness, discipline, and community tie. And if you've watched this far, here's the real question. In a world built on convenience, would we last a single medieval winter without those habits? Now let's go deeper, because even after all of this, winter still killed people. And medieval peasants knew that. That's why their final layer of survival wasn't physical. It was strategic patience. They understood something brutal. You don't conquer winter, you outlast it. And that mindset shaped everything. When the first heavy snow sealed roads across regions like northern England and the colder edges of Scandinavia, travel almost stopped. No markets, no outside help. Villages became islands, so peasants planned their entire year backward from winter. Spring planting wasn't just about harvest. It was about calculating how much grain must survive until next spring. Summer grazing wasn't just about fat animals. It was about which livestock could be spared before deep freeze to reduce mouths to feed. Hard decisions happened early, not when panic hit. Think about that. They made sacrifices months before danger arrived. That's long-term thinking most people struggle with today. And here's another twist. They didn't heat the whole house. They concentrated warmth. One main living space. Doors sealed with cloth or straw. Chimneys controlled to prevent heat escape. The goal wasn't comfort. It was efficiency. Even sleep followed strategy. People went to bed earlier in deep winter, aligning with limited daylight to conserve fuel and energy. Their daily rhythms synchronized with the sun. No artificial extension of the day. Just adaptation. But winter had one more silent threat: disease. Cold alone doesn't kill most people. Weakness does. Malnutrition weakens. Dampness spreads illness. So cleanliness around the hearth mattered. Bedding aired when possible. Smoke from fires, though irritating, helped repel insects and prez. Rived wooden interiors. And herbal knowledge played a role. Simple remedies made from garlic, onions, and dried herbs were believed to strengthen the body. Whether fully effective or not, the act of care itself boosted morale. And morale was survival fuel. Because here's something we overlook. Fear spreads faster than frost. If one family panicked, others felt it. So village elders often projected calm authority. They had seen 30 winters, maybe 40. Their presence alone was reassurance. Experience was a resource just like grain. And then comes the most underestimated survival weapon of all: skill diversity. During winter downtime, tools were sharpened, nets repaired, baskets woven, clothes mended. Nothing wasted. A broken tool in spring could mean crop failure next autumn. Winter was maintenance season. It looked quiet. It was actually preparation disguised as stillness. Now imagine late February. Stores are thin. The air still bites. But daylight lingers just a little longer each evening. That tiny increase in light, it meant hope. And hope is powerful. Medieval peasants tracked seasonal shifts closely. The angle of the sun, the behavior of animals, the slow drip of melting icicles. These were signals, proof that endurance was paying off. They didn't need weather apps. They needed awareness. And here's the powerful reveal. Medieval peasants weren't just surviving cold. They were building resilient systems that modern comfort erased. They knew hunger sharpened discipline. Darkness strengthened community bonds. Scarcity forced creativity. Remove those pressures, and you remove the training. So when we imagine brutal medieval winters, we picture suffering. And yes, suffering was real. But so was intelligence. So was cooperation. A family sitting inside a low, earth-sheltered home. Animals below generating heat. Peat fire steady. Thick wool lay. Rests wrapped tight. Stews stretching carefully rationed grain. That wasn't desperation. That was design. A design refined over centuries of trial and error. Every winter was an exam. Fail, and you disappear from history. Pass, and your children inherit better habits. That's evolution in real time. So here's the final question. If electricity vanished tonight, grocery shelves emptied tomorrow, and temperatures dropped below freezing for months, would we respond with panic or with preparation? Medieval peasants didn't have modern knowledge, but they had respect for seasons, community interdependence, and disciplined foresight. And maybe that's the real genius. Not a single trick, not one clever hack, but a mindset built on humility before nature. Winter was brutal, but it was predictable, and they prepared accordingly. That's why they lasted.